Hey everybody, it's your host Tyler, and welcome to the Tyler Knows Everything podcast. And remember, the nose is crossed out because I always want to learn more. This episode is very special to me because it was actually the first recorded episode. My good friend John Arcana was nice enough to be the first guest, and it turned out to be a really great episode with a lot of takeaways for young entrepreneurs out there. Please welcome John Arcana.
Tyler
knows
everything.
All right, we're on John Arcana. I can already tell he's anxious because when he gets out of here, he's going to have about 10 unanswered text messages, 20 emails.
You know, there's going to be a lot of red notifications on my phone.
Oh, yeah.
Try to put it down here.
The life of a real estate agent.
Yeah, a busy one, full-timer.
Yeah. So kind of take me back to, growing up in Louisiana, and you probably didn't have real estate on your mind whenever you were in high school.
Yes and no. I had my mind on sports in school and anything else that a adolescent kid has. But my family has always kind of been involved in real estate. My grandparents on my mom's side, they've had rental property throughout their life and had like some condos at beach towns, things like that. And so my dad had his license. He never did it full time as his job, but he had a license, and they had worked up and gotten a couple rental property. But my mom's dad had actually had his own real estate brokerage for like going on 40 years now.
Oh, okay.
And so I think it was always kind of like I was aware of it, that business, and I think I would like to have done that even then. But at that point, until you start stepping off and working for yourself, you're not really thinking like, that might be something I want to do. Go into business for yourself.
Sure.
But once I did, I'm glad I made that jump and trusted myself and took that risk because it's, that's what I love to do. And it was definitely the right decision for me, for sure.
Yeah. So what direction did you almost go in with the sports?
So I went to LSU. I was in the athletic training program there for most of my time. Then I switched it to education. It was all kinesiology based, human anatomy and the study of the human movement, all that good stuff. I graduated with my teaching degree, and that was an option. But I was also at the same time at LSU interning with a insurance company, life insurance and benefits like that. And so I came out of school, graduated, and I did that instead. I went the life insurance route. I did that for, 6 months, and I was like, this is not for me.
Yeah.
I'm not a good salesman, and you're also, with life insurance, that was our primary product. You're selling a product that's not required to have.
Sure.
It's not like home insurance, car insurance, where you need it.
Right.
It's a dispendable or disposable income type product. Mm-hmm. So that was tough. I got out of that, and then that's not long after that's when I moved to Texas, and things kind of changed.
Right. And so, we were talking the other day about going to college nowadays kind of versus learning a trade and how there's so many different avenues you could go through.
Right.
It makes you question for your kids. Your kids are younger. Mine are a little bit older, but by the time they get to college, the dynamic is so much different.
I totally agree. I think we have some of the same opinions on that further education, outside of high school. Unless you're doing something specialized, like a doctor or a lawyer or a CPA, the cost to benefit, I just don't know if it's there.
Right.
I think you take somebody like me who, if I'd gotten into the business 3 years sooner, say, where would I be now?
Yeah.
And I think that's true for a lot of folks who spend a ton of money on schooling at these universities, and they come out going to get a job that doesn't require their degree at all.
Yeah.
And we see that time and time again these days.
Well, I think you and I are a prime example of that. Yours was kinesiology, and then mine was nutrition and dietetics. So I was in the program to become a registered dietitian, and did that because I was interested in it at the time and didn't bother to look at the post-grad requirements.
Right.
And found out that after you graduate college and spend all that money and all that time, well, you then need to go and do an unpaid internship for almost a year.
Right.
And then you're you have to take additional graduate courses, so you're halfway to a master's, but not fully. So you might as well keep going.
Right.
And when I graduated, I was ready to work.
Mm-hmm.
So, I fell right into pharmaceutical sales immediately back in, 2006. It was a pretty good job back then.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're both an example of 4 years of our life.
I agree. And, I think there's something to be said for the college experience, I think.
Right.
And going off and learning those skills about being independent, trying to figure out the world for yourself as an adult. There's definitely value to that. And then melding with people on campus and getting involved, I think there's value to that as well.
Right.
But you can do that without spending $40,000 a semester.
For sure.
Yeah.
And
I also think originally what university was, I'm talking about way back, it's gotten so far past what it was intended to do.
Right.
Back in the day, I believe university was created for these to learn skills for jobs that required education that you couldn't get elsewhere. Now, I think universities, for the most part, have fluffed it to where they're just jamming in these classes that it's required courses,
right?
But it's not required for life and jobs, and we're missing out on things that could benefit us in society, like how to pay taxes and credit and all that good stuff. But it's required to take English too, where you're reading English literature and all that. It's just the practicality for what you're getting at those classes and how it translates to real life. There's a disconnect there.
Yeah, it seems like maybe some of the things like British literature,
right?
Maybe they could cram that into high school.
Exactly.
Once you're, it's important stuff to learn, but I feel like when it comes to life skills and business negotiations, I think I've learned more from YouTube,
right,
and podcasts,
self-education
than I did and that was all free,
right? And just being out there and getting experience in it,
right?
Which again, you're not doing that in a classroom.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And I definitely, feel for those people that had bright eyes in high school and went to, a private college, did student loans, and they felt a calling to, be a teacher or something.
Right.
And so their student loans are in the hundreds of thousands.
Exactly.
And then they're maybe getting a starting salary of $30,000, $40,000 a year. It's just going to be a long journey for them to pay that off. And I think you need to pick a major that is kind of equivalent with your target employer.
Right.
Just to, obviously a doctor is going to go to school longer.
Right.
A lawyer, but the pay grade, there's kind of a cost.
Exactly. You want it to be proportional. The cost you bite off, you want it to be proportional to what the income after this is going to be.
Yeah, just realistic expectations.
Because you don't want to just so many people in society now, I think, just step off into a financial hole, and then you couple that with our habits, and it's tough to climb out of that. But really, if you would just live below your means and not put yourself in a hole with the biting off that cost for schooling that you don't need to spend it anyway, really, you live below your means for a little while after that, you're really set in a good spot.
Right.
For the future going forward.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think that the pressures of some of the high schools to go to college and pick a major, they almost make graduation day like this impending day of doom. Like, hey, you're not going to make it in the world if you don't do this and decide this right now. And when you're 18, you don't know what you're going to be doing 10 years from now. I don't think I figured everything out fully until I was in my mid to late 20s.
I agree. I totally agree.
Definitely slowed me down changing majors because and society too. 1999 is a lot different than the world we live in now when it comes to technology and jobs that are available. So,
yeah.
So what are the the pros and cons of being an outsider coming into Southeast Texas? A lot of people kind of they call Beaumont the sad city,
right?
Or people are trying to move to the outskirts, but I think it's a great place to do business.
I totally agree. Especially, so I'm from right outside New Orleans. And so when I first moved here, before I even got my license changed, I'd hand it to them. They're like, oh, you're visiting and this and that. I'm like, oh, I just moved here. And people would be like, well, why?
Because are you working in the refinery?
Right.
That's probably the next question.
Why did you come here from New Orleans? I'm like, man, don't tell me that.
Yeah.
But, and you see examples of it time and again where people who are from here and have set their roots and they've created a strong, thriving business for themselves. I think if you have the right attitude, it's here. Everything you need is here. There are huge companies here. We were at the AmeriCommerce location here last week. Like, that is a huge business, and it's set right here in Beaumont, Texas. He was a Lamar graduate, I believe, the CEO.
Yeah, he's from Viter.
Right. So I mean,
small town.
It's you don't have to move away to make a splash, I think. And coming from the larger market like New Orleans, you can appreciate what the quote unquote smaller town has as far as opportunity that you don't get elsewhere. Like, so, for me, for instance, I do some investing in real estate outside of just being an agent. And I was able to buy housing here when I was 23 at very attractive price points, whereas there's no way I'd have been able to purchase these kind of properties for these prices in a place like New Orleans.
Right.
And so I was able to get into something like that, invest my money where I wouldn't have otherwise. And also, too, I think you can create a name for yourself here. And when it is such a tight-knit community, that's you start to know people and your name gets around, you get a reputation, it spreads like wildfire, as opposed to getting kind of lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, I think in a short period of time, you've gotten to know a lot of people, and a lot of people know who you are. And when it comes to a service, you have to be known before you're needed. So
That's exactly right.
What are some of the things you've learned from social media marketing?
So a lot of people comment on my social media, and it definitely creates a visibility and a presence and a recognition or recognizability, however you want to say it. And it's a powerful tool. I think it goes still underutilized by a lot of people because they're not using it the right way, perhaps. But man, a lot of people think that that's what drives business, and I think that's the biggest mistake, even among millennials, let alone some of the older folks who just have no clue about how it even works. But you see a lot of people, millennials in our age, are utilizing it, but it's not the right intent behind it, I think, or they're not using it as the right tool. That's all great. Using social media, you show people what you're out there doing and you document that and they can see you, but that's not what drives the business. I think we talk about this a lot too. At the end of the day, what drives business is relationships.
Right.
You've got to get face-to-face with people. It's not going to happen behind your computer or behind your phone with posts. That's all fine and dandy, and it helps that people see what you're doing. You close a deal, we post it, or got a new listing, we post that, or just the networking things we do out in the community. But unless you're out physically shaking people's hands, sharing conversation and thoughts and ideas with them face-to-face, the social media doesn't really mean anything.
Sure.
So, I think you can attest to that as well. I mean, the relational part of anything we do, no matter what line of work you're in, it starts with the relationships first.
Oh, I agree. I think I use social media more so to just tell a story.
Correct.
And you're letting people see a little window in on your daily routine and get them interested in the activities that you're doing. Try to almost do it as a reality show that's short, gets people's attention, and try to learn the different dynamics of the platform. So, Facebook, for example, you could post something now and it immediately gets some good traction, 20, 30 likes, and then tomorrow it falls off.
Right.
In the next day.
Right.
Whereas LinkedIn, a lot of people kind of sleep on LinkedIn these days because it used to be just a profile, but now it's actually a news feed. And their algorithms are different than Facebook, where you're seeing stuff from weeks and weeks ago. And I'll make a post that gets traction for almost a month or two,
right?
Just constantly on a daily basis. So that's been interesting to navigate the different dynamics of Instagram versus LinkedIn versus Facebook.
Yeah.
And, speaking of reality shows, a lot of people, I think real estate agents increased after people saw a lot of those reality shows about flips and first-time buyer. I think people thought it was, way more glamorous than it really was, and it's all contracts and closings.
Yeah.
But, do you think those shows are even real?
Man, it's just no. The short of it is no. They might have 20% of it where it's accurate. it just gives people such false hope. I think I'm sure within any industry where they're having these type shows, whatever industry it is, it's 80% of it is staged and fabricated. I mean, we've had agents around town on these shows, and they're showing listings that closed weeks ago. There's not even available showing for them or available listing for them to show. But especially with like the flipping business, when you have an event like Hurricane Harvey, and so that creates, it's tragic, but it also then creates an opportunity for people to then, there's something needs to be done with these homes that got flooded and gutted. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of these people who have not been in it before see an opportunity, and they want to capitalize on that or try to. And they say, oh, it's not that, they see the shows, right?
Yeah. They do it in a day.
We go see 3 houses, we pick one, 3 weeks later, it's on the market and sold for full asking price. And you don't see, man, you've got to see a lot of houses to get the right deal. And then you're competing. Am I overpaying for this one? Okay. And now, we're going to rehab this thing. A crew walks off the job, 3 weeks into it. You got to scramble to find somebody else. You've got investment partners in this, and there might be conflicts there. And then, people want to put all these nice, cool designs of Chip and Joanna Gaines. And man, I love that stuff. But in reality, you've got to work within a budget to know that you can only resell this thing for X. And to make my profit, I've got to stay within a certain budget. So to make something that's mass market appeal, also within your budget, that's never talked about in these shows. And then when you're listing it and you're on the market, the conflicts that can arise there, the problems that can arise there, where you have people falling over to find these or buy this house from you, and it's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of things that can go into it. And so these shows, it's just, they create a nice, pretty picture that's condensed into 30 minutes, and man, it's a 6-month grind.
Yeah. Have you ever done a flip yourself?
Yes, so we are, I think I've sold 4 now.
Wow.
And I'm in my 5th one. So to a lot of people, that's like, there are some pros out there that do 5 a year easily. But, that's also their full-time job. I still consider myself a full-time real estate agent first. Right. And I say, at night I become a real estate investor. And I've had them done with partners. So I'm well versed in, the entire process, and looking at these shows, it's completely different than what you see on TV for sure. Yeah. But again, even that type of stuff, we talked about relationships. That's huge. Everything is about relationships. Knowing where you might be able to get these deals before they hit the market, and then having the right relationships for money people who are going to back you on this or that you can partner up with. The right relationships with the right contractors who aren't going to screw you over and take your money and run, or who are on the right page with you. All those things down the line, those relationships are hugely important in whatever you do, and especially this stuff. I just can't emphasize that enough. Go out, meet people, show them what you're doing. And if you're worth what you're saying you're worth, they'll see it and they'll recognize it and they'll want to work with you. And that's how you can create a network that just builds on itself. And that will take you farther than, the last few here that I've done have been solely based off of relationships that I probably wouldn't have these opportunities otherwise if I didn't have those relationships with these guys in place already.
Sure.
And so, man, relationships equal dollars.
Yeah. And I think that's great that you have multiple sources of income too. I think,
for sure.
Our parents' age, they would look at it as they just wanted the one career, the safety net. They looked at it as a negative, like, oh, I'm having to work 2 jobs to make ends meet or work 3 jobs. But we don't really, our generation doesn't really look at it that way. We're into the side hustle and the gig economy.
For sure.
If you only have one source of income and it leaves, you're vulnerable. So.
Right. And that's fine. If you've got that kind of income where it's clicking and also, that's fine. But even that can be taken from you at any time. Whatever industry you're in, even as a real estate agent, if you're a doctor and you get a hand injury or something, whatever industry you're in, it can be taken from you if that's your only thing. And if you don't have some other income in place, it could be extremely difficult. I think what they say, the average millionaire has 7 sources of income, different sources of income.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
So I fully believe that. When I talk about diversification, it's about sources of income. It's not necessarily how many different stocks you have in your portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
I try to diversify with rental income and the flips, and then my own business, and then the stock markets. If you could start a business somewhere else where you're just an investor in a business and you get dividends and returns on that, you've definitely got to have those different sources. And if you're content, that's fine. I mean, I'm not hating on anybody who doesn't have more than one job, but I'm trying to grasp everything available in this life. And if that means I got to go hustle after 5 o'clock, that's so be it. I'm down for it.
What are people doing wrong with their tax return?
Man, we should probably have a CPA in here. But, I think even folks in that line of work if you have a traditional mindset, they can be advising you wrong too. I think if you've got a business set up where you can be an employee of that business, that's a huge benefit. You've got to look at all this stuff and how you can shelter your money. And there's so many different opportunities. I don't think many people realize the IRS and the tax code is incentivized for employers and businesses spending money, because it stimulates economies and hires employees, and it gives back. And I think people don't understand that a lot of times when they want to scale back and cut some of that out. But if you can utilize those things that are on the books to help grow your own business and keep some of that money to where you can reinvest into your business and the community and so on, it's only going to help bring people in. That definitely, you've got to, doing the TurboTax thing is fine and dandy, and especially if you're just kind of a W-2. But even there, man, get a good CPA that's worth what you're paying them. Pay a little more, but they're worth it. Get you a good financial advisor. Sit down with them, an attorney maybe. Come up with a plan. That way they can all maximize what you're keeping for sure. Because, it's tax time right now, right? We're mid-April. We got 3 days from tax day.
Yeah. Some people have already got a big refund.
Yeah.
And what are they doing wrong with their refund?
Well, okay. So you see it all the time, like from February to April, right? If these car salesmen, whoever else, real estate agents,
big ticket items, furniture.
Yeah, they want you to take that tax refund and go spend it immediately on that kind of stuff. Take your tax refund and go that's your down payment on your house, right? We see that all the time. Man, okay, if you've got your savings padded, maybe that's one thing. If you just, I only need $3,000 or whatever it might be. But if that tax refund is going to put you to where, now all my pieces are set and I have that final last bit of money I needed for a down payment, fine. But if you're scraping and you don't have any cash reserves and you don't have any emergency savings, don't spend that money. You're living beyond your means at that point. So now you've got a mortgage that you're on the hook for 30 years. And no savings, that would scare the hell out of me.
Yeah, it would.
Save your money, live within your means. If people would just sacrifice a little bit, live in an apartment that's a lot cheaper for a year, as opposed to going and renting a place that might cost you what a mortgage payment would be or more. And I've got renters. I got rental property. I want renters. But, even some of my tenants I've had before, it's like if they would just scale back and go live somewhere that's cheaper, they could save this money for a year and be set. They'd have that down payment without having to look at now my tax refund, then we go chuck this on a car, or a down payment. Take it slow, live within your means, and you'll get there so much quicker. You're so much quicker.
Yeah. And me, I'm a do-it-yourselfer. I try to learn how to do things on YouTube when it comes to, carpentry or trades around fixing stuff around the house. But I think after learning more about real estate, the one thing that I would not do by myself is try to sell my house. You know, I see a lot of people in my neighborhood that start out for sale by owner, and a couple weeks later, you see a real. It's represented by a realtor.
Yeah. So, as a real estate agent, when I see FSBO, it's like a pet peeve. It makes my skin boil because it goes back to one of those things where it's the value versus what you're putting into it versus what you're getting out of it. And so many people think, well, I'm going to save on this commission, and so I'll save 60%. The numbers show that you are netting 9% less than what you would if you had hired an agent and paid that commission. So we're talking about a 15% swing.
Yeah. And not to mention the scope of the work.
Exactly. That people, for the most part, don't even know what they don't know about a real estate transaction. You know, just off the bat, the easy one is if you're for sale by owner, you're not catching the entire market. And that's just simple supply and demand. If you want every possible qualified buyer for your house to see your house, and if it's not listed, if it's just for sale by owner, you go put it on Zillow by yourself and stick a sign on the yard, you think you're covered, and it's not the case.
Yeah, and I would imagine that most of the for sale by owners are probably they're young and it's their first time to ever sell it, and they just kind of assume that they can do it. And imagine that person getting an offer from a seasoned real estate agent.
Exactly. When I see somebody who's for sale by owner, but they're going to work with buyer's agents, and if I can get in a deal with them, I'm looking forward to it because I'm going to pencil whip the hell out of this contract, and you're not going to know what the hell hit you. You're just going to be, okay, You might have somebody who's looking over it, but still, even beyond just the contract.
Yeah, it's better for the buyer in that sense.
And there's stuff that's going to come down the pipe later on down the transaction that could cost you a lot of money too.
Yeah, and it's probably frustrating because you're not dealing with a professional.
Oh, yeah.
Because obviously there's a lot of exchange of information and deadlines.
And people just don't know what they don't know. They don't know what's customary inside of these transactions and what the costs are and aren't and who's responsible for what. And man, you can put yourself in such a bad spot as a for sale by owner. And then when you get 30 or 45 days down the road when you're trying to close this transaction, you could be hit in the face with a lot of stuff you didn't realize was hitting you. And that's where a lot of your cost, where you thought you had, that you were saving on, man, it's gone. So now, and just the time alone, there are 5 to 10 people involved in each transaction that we have relationships with, that we can go to and call, and we're checking it. There's fires to put out. People who haven't done it before just don't realize what all it takes while they're working their 9-to-5 job and things need to get done now, and they're waiting until Friday at 6 o'clock. It's not happening.
So, would you consider yourself sales or service?
I am service 100%. I don't sell anything. If anything, we're marketing. We have marketing plans to try and sell your house for the highest price in the shortest amount of time. But we're not sales. Like if you're working with buyers, I'm here to put options in front of you. You tell me which one you like or want, and then we go try to get you the best deal and represent you. We're looking for best terms and representation for you. That's all service oriented. It has nothing to do with the actual sales. We're not out there pushing product. It's someone else's product. We're seeing which one you like the best, and okay, how can I service you to get the best deal now?
Sure.
And same thing, even for selling the homes as a listing agent, we're putting together a marketing plan, trying to attract as many people as we can to it, which is a process in itself that people think is very underrated. And again, so when you get that buyer, and now that we've done the marketing plan, there's a service that goes into protecting your asset and getting the most money for your asset. So it's all service. There's no sales. Like I told you earlier, I'm a terrible salesman. I can't go in there with pitches and cold calls on the phones. I don't do that.
Yeah.
That's out of state insurance if I was. And there are some great salespeople out there who do this kind of things, and I respect the hell out of them. But we are service first. We're servicing you. We are your personal representation. That's why we are agents. Just like sports athletes have agents and so on. They're representing a client and trying to get the best deal for them. In a nutshell, that's what we're trying to do for you. it's you and your asset.
And in addition to your career, just in your life, what have you been doing to stay driven? How do you pump yourself up
Oh, man.
for the grind every day?
I think I've never really had to look too much for that motivation because I love what I do.
Yeah. I think we both love Mondays.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it every night. But I've seen both sides of it. So, I think you've been there too. When you're at a job, and I think that's where most of society is. So that's why a lot of us feel that way. Where you just, even if you don't hate it, but you're just unfulfilled. And so all your tasks for this job that you've got coming Monday, that's not fulfilling you. It's not anything you want to do, especially if you're in a career where it's, your salary, you're getting paid for your time, and you're helping somebody else further their entrepreneurial spirit and their goals and dreams for whatever business they have. But man, when you love what you do, there's no such thing as needing motivation. It's inherent. It's there. You already love what you do. We spoke to the school, to some young kids about this stuff, and you had a different topic, but mine was work ethic. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my talk that day was about if you can spend the time to find what you love, the work's going to come. It's going to pour out of you because it's inherent. I think that's why you see these athletes and entrepreneurs who have made these huge leaps in their respective fields. It's not physically possible to put out the kind of output it takes to attain that if you're having to manufacture some motivation.
Right.
It's inherent. And so that's why, like you said, Sunday nights, man, I got my book out. I'm writing down the things that I got to do and check up, because I'm ready to hit the ground running on Monday.
Yeah, I guess you're more of a night person.
I am. Some people have their early mornings. They like to seize the morning. I'm a little bit opposite of that.
Yeah, I mean, you may be crunching numbers while I'm asleep.
Right, and I've learned that you've got to find what works best for you. I tried, and as far as that regard, is trying to find motivations for things like that. It's to change some ways. It wasn't necessarily in my job or the career I'm in. But, you try to get up and seize the morning, and, you wake up before everybody else. I can't do it. I can't do it. I've tried. So I seize the night.
Yeah.
Once everybody's asleep, I get my twins down. My wife, she's going to bed a lot of times early, right after we put the kids down.
And they're two?
Yeah, so they'll be three. They'll be 3 in May, early May. Twins, and my wife works full time, so I grind at night. I'm up at night, and then I'm up in the morning getting the kids to school. Mm-hmm. But that's my time.
Yeah, that's fair. A lot of those people that are waking up early, they're going to bed at 9, mm-hmm. 10, especially those people that work mm-hmm. out maybe every single day at 4 or something.
Right.
They're going to bed pretty early.
Yes, for sure.
They're not able to attain that level of intensity every single day.
Right.
That, don't let them fool you
right.
there.
And that's why I said, you just got to find what works for you. I've tried to do the morning stuff. And sometimes, man, I'll get back into it, but eventually you've got to find the process that works for you.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's a little bit easier when you are kind of excited about what you've got coming the next day.
Sure.
Where not everything in your day is a burden or a chore.
I think a lot of people stay in jobs for 2 to 3 years that they hate because, especially when they're young, they don't want their resume to look cluttered and
like you need it.
Bouncing around jobs.
Gotta have the experience.
But I think that they should go ahead and leave that job when they have another opportunity in place and tell that future employer, said, this place wasn't the right fit for me. It wasn't the right culture, and I couldn't develop myself.
Right.
And I needed something that I was passionate about. And I think that they would respect that when you're coming to them wanting to be passionate about that industry.
I agree. And I think, too, I know some people are in positions where this is their only option right now, and they've got to have this job to provide, or, you got to have an income. I get that. But that doesn't mean that's all you have to do. I mean, we just talked about the side hustles. Come home and work on what your passion is. If you want to turn that into an income, you've got to find what you're passionate about, what's going to make you fulfilled, and find somebody who's going to compensate you enough that will help you achieve the things you want to achieve. So if that means driving a fancy car, having a big fancy house, and taking exotic trips, whatever, okay. Well, then find what you're A, passionate about, and B, that you can get paid to sustain that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't need all those things and just working in that job that gets you fulfilled, and maybe the income's not huge or what it might be in a different job, but if you feel fulfilled and you're passionate about it, that's fine too.
Yeah.
But don't go home at the end of the night and go, well, I hate my job, and you just, then I'll pull up Netflix and eat ho-hos.
Yeah, I think there's a fit for everybody.
There's time outside of your job to go pursue what you want to pursue.
Sure.
Go do it.
Yeah. Has it been hard to balance the work-life schedule? You got young twins.
Yeah.
Got to be a good father.
Mm-hmm.
You got to try to find some time for yourself to work out.
Right.
Eat healthy. You're on the road a lot, showing houses.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned over the years to try to help that out?
I don't know if I'm
still working on it.
Yeah, it's a work in progress. Yeah. I'm probably not the best source of it because my wife will probably tell you that the work-life balance is imbalanced right now.
Yeah.
I think you see a lot of entrepreneurs and people working for themselves. Work-life balance is all relative, right?
Sure.
And that doesn't mean it doesn't change over time, too. My mindset personally is I'm going to bust my ass and give it whatever time I need to give it now and early on in my career. That way, as my kids grow a little older, I can have that nest egg and the business there where I don't have to be so hands-on and so getting after it, 16 hours a day. That's my mindset now.
Right. I know for me personally, my daughter will be a teenager next month, and my son's only 2 years behind her. And around that age range, I found it exponentially easier. So, you do have that to look forward to.
Yeah, there's definitely the stages of life. It all plays a part. There's no one blueprint, I think. Everybody's life is different. Their stages in life are different.
Right.
Some people have spouses that work or don't work.
Yeah, and there's lots of tasks that go away. I don't even remember the last time that I had to dress them or bathe them. They're on autopilot when it comes to that.
Exactly.
And they're starting to have after-school activities, so that extends the day.
Right.
There's some days where my daughter might go to school and she's not getting picked up till 5:30 because she has a sport or cheerleading or something like that after school. So, and getting school age, that helps out a lot too.
Yeah, so your work-life balance, I think, is always a roller coaster, and you've got to peg it right for the stage of life you're at, and what your circumstances are. At the end of the day, again, you've got your goals. You know what you got to do to achieve them. If your partner's on board with you, you can figure it out. You lay out your own blueprint that's going to work for you for that time, and then over time, it can evolve and change as things change in your life. But you stop making excuses about it. Everybody's busy. Everybody's got things they want to do.
Oh, sure.
Everybody's got kids, and you can make it happen if you are intentional about it. So
yeah, that's one of my pet peeves about fitness. People say they don't have time to work out.
For sure. I mean, you're over here doing 1,000 pull-ups a week. I'm trying to keep at least somewhat of a regular schedule at CrossFit. We're abundant in excuses, and it doesn't have to be working out. It can be, I don't have time for this, or I don't have time for that. If it's what do they say? If it's worth it to you, you'll make it a priority. If not, you'll make excuses.
Yeah, you'll make it an appointment.
That's right.
Where people don't go too long without making a haircut appointment,
right? Or
scheduling an appointment at the dentist or something like that. And you just have to apply that logic to other areas in your life. Make a workout appointment, and set that.
Well, especially. I think so many people are so inefficient with their days anyway. Let's think of the time we waste.
Sure.
And then they want to say we don't have time. And I'm at the point now where time is my most valuable resource. I'd rather pay to have time than be paid to give my time to an employer. And so I know if I'm paying for time, I'm going to utilize the shit out of it.
Yeah.
Because it's costing me money, right? That's our second most valuable resource.
Yeah, if you have a babysitter or an assistant.
Babysitter, and it's employees, assistant, whatever it might be, your time is the most valuable resource you have. And so don't waste it, and don't make excuses about not having it when you're burning it. Man, it's there. You look at some of these people, who prioritize their days and what they've accomplished in their life, and you're like, it would take 10 lifetimes to do it. It's all about time and how you prioritize it.
Did you hang on to that CrossFit certification?
So I let it lapse. At 5 years, you have to renew.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I let it go is because I know I'm not going to be in the position where I'm going to be a paid instructor at any point in the near future. I'm not going to open my own gym like I was back in the past.
So were you close to opening your own gym?
Yeah.
And that would have been in Louisiana.
Correct.
Right.
So I grew up right outside New Orleans. And so right after I got out of the insurance world, I was going to get back into the world of, physical fitness and all that.
Do you remember what year that was?
2012?
I think 2012, right? It was a little bit easier to get into regionals.
Yeah.
Back then.
Trust me, I was never going to be a regionals athlete anyway, but at least I could.
Back then, it would be close.
It'd be close. If I was in the physical fitness realm that I am.
At the peak.
Yeah, at the peak of my physical fitness, then might have been close. But now, no shot.
Yeah, it wasn't, but like 4 years later, it just got
blew
insane.
up. I mean, there's, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people now get involved in it.
I don't think in 2012 there was as many pros in that sport. It wasn't heavily endorsed
that's the other
at the time. And so all the people in regionals were just coaches or gym rats.
Right.
And a lot of staff at gyms. But now
you've got paid sponsored athletes where they get paid to work out 5 times a day and they have their chef and
I didn't even do the Open this year.
Yeah, me neither. I participated, but I didn't sign up. But back in 2012, after I got out of the insurance world, me and a buddy were opening up a CrossFit, and that's when I got my certification because you need it to be affiliated. And I am so happy that I got it still, though, for the base of knowledge that I have, and just to have it with me as a casual athlete working out in the gym every week. That base of knowledge is still, I value it.
I think accountability is a big thing too with anything like working out or nutrition.
For sure.
Every single morning we get a text message of our buddies' workout, and
those are those early morning guys where I'm rolling around the bed and seeing their workouts.
If it's Monday through Friday, I'm like, whatever. I'm working out too, or I'm about to go work out.
Yeah.
But we'll get that same text on a Saturday and a Sunday, pretty much every Saturday or Sunday, and that's when it really hits me, and I'm like, wow, what am I doing today? I've got this free time. I'm not doing anything physical, and he's out there every single day. Yeah,
I think surrounding yourself with those people who are going to be your accountability partners, whether it's intentional or not, but it's people who are pulling themselves in the right direction and therefore going to make you want to pull yourself in that right direction, whether it's, your fitness or your career. I'm in an accountability group at Remax with some other agents. I think that's huge. We talk a lot about surrounding yourself with people who share those goals and aspirations and work ethic. I think there's another saying that says you are a summary of the 5 people you hang out with the most, or something like that.
Yeah,
I believe it for sure. And you want people around who are going to hold you accountable and tell you when it's time to get your shit together.
I think so, yeah. You really got to audit your circle of friends.
I agree. Yeah, I love when you say that.
I think a lot of people don't do that until their late 20s to 30s because it's not the cool thing to do in high school.
Right.
It's cool to be the class clown. It's cool to be the...
Yeah, you want as many friends as possible, right? You want to be Mr. Popularity.
Yeah. You want to be friends with everybody.
No.
And you want people to look up to you for doing, silly antics.
Right.
And instead of, if we acted like we acted now in high school, we wouldn't be cool.
No.
If we care.
Right, exactly. At the end of the day, you start worrying about you and you worry about people who are also worrying about you. And that's when your circle shrinks. But I think that's easier to steer that ship when you're all going in that one direction when it's a tight unit. And it's going to, again, hold you accountable and you're all going to get to the goals you want to get to. Anyway, that's my thought on it, at least.
Yeah. Well, hey, did you have any books or podcasts that really, motivated you in the past year or so? Kept you on track?
So I do, but I'll start way back, actually. So the first one that stands out to me, which is, I think, big in the real estate investing world, you'll probably hear it a lot, but it's not just real estate investing or real estate, but Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
By Robert Kiyosaki.
Mm-hmm.
That's just more about financial literacy and principles in life.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it has a lot to do with living below your means. And then when you spend your money, you spend it on assets first that can then generate income for you that you spend on the liabilities, versus how most people do it is where we get our money, we spend it on the liabilities, and then whatever's left over, if there's any left over, that's what we put in assets.
Right.
And so that was huge for me. I love that book and that whole series. There's a ton of other books that he has. So here, most recently, I just finished David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me. And that dude is nuts.
Did you do the audio or the book?
I did the audio. So where it's like they're spitballing, they go off script, and it's kind of like a radio show / podcast / the audio book.
It's a very unique audio book. I would recommend everyone to do the audio version.
Definitely, I agree.
So much extra content.
And that's a lot about your mindset, which I totally agree with. Now, he's more about callousing your mind and seeking out hard stuff
right,
intentionally to push that boundary of your mind, which I totally understand and I'm with, because I'm very much about putting yourself in uncomfortable situations to stretch your comfort zone. Because I think anytime you can push there, you get there and you expand, then you have a new normal, a new baseline. And that's kind of what his overall message is, I think, of the mind. Now, he does some crazy stuff to get there, and he's superhuman, so he's pushing his mind to limits that most people I don't think can get to. And
that's where that's actually where the pull-up thing came from.
Right.
You know, that once I heard that, right. I thought that it was something I could give it a go.
Mm-hmm.
And I admire people so much like that, but they come from such a different walk of life than I do. And I think you and I would be on the same page where you have a lot of these famous motivational people that had a crazy childhood. You know, they were just dealt a really bad hand and went through stuff that we could never imagine. You know, I had good parents growing up. You had good parents. Not a lot of adversity that we faced growing up.
I agree.
And so I tried to figure out how to apply that to being motivating to all people. And I think that the way I figured out how to do it is through positive energy. You know, I don't have to call on a bad childhood or bad experiences or, discrimination to try and invoke a reaction or light a fire under me. It's more about having a positive experience in life and, being nice to people, just trying to spread positive energy and bounce it back off. And that's it may not be exciting. You know, I can't write a book because I don't have as much.
Hey. You never know, man. That's because I'm 100% with you there. I think people use their adverse situations. They could either let it defeat them, or like this guy, David Goggins, it just turn you in the opposite direction, and it's all used for good. And again, he got into a stratosphere that most people I don't think can attain. But I think you and I are similar in that regard, where we try to push our boundaries and get uncomfortable and get outside of our comfort zone. But our nugget is that positive energy where we can spread the good. And when you see that impact somebody, that's motivating for us to keep on doing it.
A lot of people see me speak in front of people or get on TV, podcasts. I've been a guest on several, but even starting out in high school, speaking in front of people, I would get insanely nervous.
Right.
My hands would sweat. I wouldn't think that I could do it, but I felt comfortable up on the stage, and you would never know it.
Right.
People didn't know that I'm nervous. I mean, I'm nervous today, and and me and you, we talk every day.
You're right. I mean, we totally, I think, share that. 'Cause I think so. You and I are both introverts for sure.
Closet introverts.
Yeah,
is what I would
exactly. So when I tell people I'm an introvert, they're like, no way. Yeah.
I think every time I go to a social networking event, I think we both hear the same thing. Hey, I see you everywhere, and your social game is on point.
Right.
With those two things.
100%.
And, we've had people that I've had multiple people want to take me to lunch or coffee to learn how they can get on social media or how they can structure their social media kind of like I do, and, give them some advice and things like that. And I don't think it's really attention seeking. It's more telling a story.
I agree. And again, it goes back to a purpose and a passion pushes you past feeling uncomfortable or, like introverts feeling uncomfortable in a crowd. Your purpose and your passion drives you past that. And that's what I'm saying. If you have the right motivations behind you, so again, that's not about finding motivation for something you're not fully in. It's finding what you can fully be passionate about, and that'll just push you past all that. I don't think about it now in terms of I've got to go get uncomfortable and shake some hands and make some conversation with people. It comes naturally when you're fully engaged with people, interested in what they want to have and how you can help them and bring that positivity. All the rest falls by the wayside.
And it's practice.
Yeah, you're right about that too.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I don't think I was as free and comfortable with it 3 or 4 years ago as I am now.
Sure.
But again, it goes back to two. We put ourselves in these uncomfortable positions intentionally, because we have already that passion and motivation there. So we're getting uncomfortable, and then that becomes your new normal.
Right.
We stretch that comfort zone, and you keep doing it little by little, just like Goggins says.
Yeah,
keep building on it.
Anybody can truly do it, because anytime you've ever seen me speak in front of people and it looks charismatic, I can guarantee you there's not a deodorant on the planet that can work. I mean, the degree has failed.
Right.
But you don't know that.
Exactly.
I'll wear a dark colored jacket.
Right. And that, I get a lot of people in my industry talking about the videos that I make on social media. And they're like, oh, you're just so natural and they're so awesome. I'm like, y'all don't see, especially early on, you didn't see the 50 videos where I was like, stop, delete, or start over, and how nervous I was then. But again, so many people will do that for a week and it gets uncomfortable and they stop.
Exactly.
As opposed to you just keep doing it little by little, and it gets, the more and more you do, the more comfortable it gets, and the less takes you're doing it in because you feel comfortable and it's more natural. And that's the thing. People see the product, they don't see the work behind it, the motivations behind it, and the consistency behind it. It all comes from the passion and the purpose. Got to find that first.
Yeah, especially the consistency. I would agree with when in the marketing and social media, and it takes so much more beyond just a selfie. You've got to put out relatable content. And Gary Vee was giving advice the other day about people that say, "Well, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to start pushing content, or I don't feel like what I'm doing is important." He said, just tell your story. Yep. Just document what you're doing on a daily basis, and people will find it interesting.
I agree. He says it all the time, and that's what I say. People come to me asking, "What do you do, this and that?" I don't have any magic potions or silver bullets. I can tell you what I did, and again, most of it is getting out there in front of people, meeting people, going to these networking events, joining these groups and organizations. That's what makes people uncomfortable, and that's what makes people nervous and all that. When you walk into a room of networkers and you don't know anybody, and then you're not going to talk to anybody. Well, you might as well not be there in the first place. But so then as you're doing these things, you're documenting that. And document the real stuff. Like, hey, I went to this thing, I'm nervous as hell, Or you can push past that and you get comfortable with it. And then you have your networks. And that's when we're going around the room and Facebook Live and all these people. It gets people excited. But you've got to start somewhere. Otherwise, if you don't keep it going and you quit like people do because it's uncomfortable, you've got nothing.
Yeah, I think there's millions of people out there that have watched a reality show about far less interesting things than some of the stuff that we get into. And you can find an audience in anything that you do.
I mean, that's even people, I think Gary Vee is in vogue right now, and a lot of people look at him as an influencer and a social media creator, but I mean, he'll tell you on all his stuff. He was doing that daily wine vlog. I don't know how many episodes before he got more than a few hundred, viewers, and then until it blew up. And that's consistency. It would be very easy for somebody, who's selling software or in real estate, and they've got their little vlog and they do it for a week in our market. And it's like nobody's watching. Oh, well, I'm done. Stay consistent. People take notice. You've got to push through all that. Be consistent. Let your purpose and your passion come through and drive you. People see it. They want to be part of it.
Yeah, this will launch in June, and there's not going to be 1,000 listeners right away. Right. But what if I do it for 10 years?
Exactly.
And what if I consistently have one guest per week for 10 years.
Right.
You know, what could it turn into? And
Little by little over time.
you know, with that, I don't know what order these are going to come out in, but I just want to, you know, give a special thanks to you, John, because you're the first guest.
Hey, I appreciate it. I'm happy to be there.
Instead of getting outside of my comfort zone, I wanted to be comfortable with the first guest.
Right.
so I did pick a very good friend, but so much insightful advice. You know, thanks for coming by. You're welcome anytime.
Man, I appreciate it. Anytime you need a guy, I'm here, man. I enjoyed it.
All right, well, let's wrap this up. Do you have any additional advice you want to close with for the youngsters?
Man, find your purpose, find your passion, stop making excuses, get uncomfortable. It'll come to you.
That's great, man. Y'all have a good week out there. Great stuff, John. Hey, do you remember that show, Rescue 911? It came on in the 1990s. Well, my guest next week was actually portrayed on one of the episodes after he survived falling off a cliff, so be sure to check that out. Stay up to date by following me on iTunes, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more platforms in the future. I hope you have a good rest of your week. Thank you for listening to the Tyler Knows Everything podcast, where the nose is crossed out because I always want to learn more.